turned the camera on.
Oh.
It
Why'd
is
you do that?
7 o'clock.
You're killing me, Smalls.
Red
I just
dot.
had 2 people leave.
I noticed.
Cassie.
Yeah.
Anybody know show tunes?
I can't juggle.
Can't juggle?
Can't juggle.
We need Diane and we need
Good evening,
Cassie.
Don. Good evening, Mark. How are you? How you doing, Jeff?
What's going on?
Doing good. How are you, Norm?
I am very good. So far, so good anyway. Let's hope we can continue that trend.
Yep.
Finally, you're on top of it. The rest of them are not. So.
It's officially 7:01.
We have no excuses.
We will. Do not go below.
No, they were having a side discussion. Time to bring it up at 7:01 is not the good time.
Yep.
So, Councillor Ward, when we get to the department head reports, I wanted to make an announcement about papers, nomination papers, and offices open.
Right on.
It's okay.
We'll leave it there. Just step on.
Give you a heads up.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't even skip a beat, dude. Family first. You know that.
All right, good.
All right. I'll open up the town council meeting for, June 16th. Which month are we in now?
We got it.
Pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All you, Twyla.
Roll call. Councillor Albert.
Here.
Councillor Colby. Here. Councillor Ganong.
Here.
Councillor La Rochelle.
Here.
Councillor Ward.
Here.
Councillor Lunt.
Here.
And Councillor Fellows.
Here.
First item is good news and recognition.
Anybody? Tell us about graduation.
It was good. All the kids got to walk across the stage, get their diplomas, and celebrate their accomplishments.
Perfect. Congratulations to the class of 2020. Anybody else? Anybody else got anything for good news and recognition?
I do. I love to see the green grass up at the Graziano's Park. Looking forward to seeing that come to completion. So it's a nice first step.
Right on.
I just wanted to comment that I thought that the parade after the graduation, in particular the part that got the bell rung up here, was particularly nice and poignant, I guess, with an 1850s or whatever it is school.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. I could hear it from our car when we were going through. And
Bob Stroud had given me a tour of the bell tower the day before, and we talked about it, and he said, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's do that.
yeah,
And
you could hear it. It was really loud.
Fantastic.
I'm sure the tenants loved it, right?
Yeah.
There was a lot of people that actually turned out for the parade. I was pretty impressed.
I hope that parade becomes a regular thing, because I think it was a success.
From all the kids I talked to, they said that was the highlight of graduation.
Really? Cool.
Very cool.
Starting a new trend. That's good for that.
Anybody else? Moving right along, Twyla.
Is the public hearings. So once the chair opens any public hearing, a person present who wishes to speak may enter the room and approach the lectern, one individual at a time. To address the council chair, please use the microphone and state your name for the record. Those listening from Town Hall live video streaming are now invited to send written comments by email to award@lisbonme.org once any public hearing has been opened. Councillor Ward will review his emails at this time and will move to the medical marijuana establishment license for Delightful Heights.
And it's my understanding, for the benefit of time and the attendee, is the fact that right after the public hearing, when we close it, we'll be voting on this item tonight?
We will in the next section under
After the
the consent agenda.
Okay, thank you. All right, at this time, I will open that public hearing for Delightful Heights. You have the floor, sir.
Can speak.
I'm Josh Dillon, one of the owners of Delightful Heights. appreciate you having me here. I know it's been hard times for all of us. Sorry for my math. My daughter made it. But if you have any questions for me, more than welcome to answer anything that you have.
Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, can you just describe your business? Just give us a little bit of overview of how it's going to be set up and where you are.
Sure. We're actually right in the building between Flux and Frank's, the old bank, I think it was back in the day. So we're utilizing one space side as the storefront. The other side is going to be more of a office packaging, and then we have a third room that we're going to use. More than likely, we'll have a part-time nurse practitioner that could provide medical cards for people that need it. So it's going to be a retail store. We're not going to have a bunch of cabinets, a bunch of stuff out on display. It's going to be more of, here's what we have. We're not going to keep a lot out. We're just going to keep one or two items of what we do have on display. And everything else would kind of be either under or locked away in the back room. And that's how we're going to do it. So, yes.
Anybody else? Thank you, sir. Seeing no other comments, anybody in the hallway?
No.
I will close the public hearing.
Next item?
Next item.
Okay.
Thank you,
Is
sir.
the public hearing for the medical marijuana establishment license for 207 Edibles. I believe the business owner is here.
Hello,
How we doing? Why don't you state your name for us, please?
Lorelei Hilliker. I'm the owner of 207 Edibles.
Okay. Any questions of the participant?
I just asked the same question. Can you describe your business and tell us where you are going to be set up?
I am just a commercial kitchen as far as the THC side is concerned. I wholesale all my items to people like Lisbon Cannabis and about 10 other caregivers throughout the state. So there's no retail going on in the upstairs. It's just a kitchen. Way to expand. I also own the CBD store behind McDonald's. So I do process a bunch of CBD edibles for the same purposes and for my store, of course. But it's no open flame, it's all induction based and mostly just handmade, labor based. We do a lot of gummies and candies and brownies and all that fun stuff.
Thank you. Any other questions? Anybody else on this item liking to speak? Seeing none, I'll close that public hearing as well. Next item, Twyla?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is a public hearing for the medical marijuana establishment for Lisbon Cannabis.
Welcome, sir.
Yeah, hello everyone. How you doing?
Why don't you state your name and tell us about your business? I believe will be Mark's question.
My name's Jason Smith, owner of Lisbon Cannabis. We've been doing business now down in Industrial Park for a little over a year. Things have been going really good. We're kind of looking to upgrade the old Warrumbro office mill building, kind of just give it a facelift and get more visibility from the big intersection right there of 196 and Canal and Main Street. So just kind of looking to expand a little bit and have the building look a little bit better than it has in the past few years.
Relocation or both? Are you going to operate both or
No, it's
relocate?
going to be a relocation because we can only have one store.
Right, okay. Any other questions? Seeing none, I'll close this public hearing as well.
Thank you,
Next,
Jason.
Twyla. Thank you.
Thanks.
Next public hearing is the itinerant vendor mobile unit for Gary Karen doing business as Anything Goes at 501 Lisbon Street.
Is Mr. Karen here, Diane? I'll open the public hearing for officialness. Anybody wishing to speak?
This is just a food truck, right?
Correct.
It is a food truck.
Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and move the next item, Twyla.
It's audience participation and response for agenda items.
I had one request for that. Is Karen here tonight? I'm sorry, Lisa Ward.
Lisa Ward? Is Lisa Ward present?
Yeah, Lisa, I believe, is this where she wanted to be participant tonight.
Oh, okay. Lisa, did you want to address the council? It's audience participation. Thank you. I see you got my note.
I did, thank you.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to address, and thanks for your time. I wanted to address the council because I know there are a couple of items on the agenda that are of interest to me, and all for similar reasons. As you know, I recently became a member of the Lisbon Development Committee, and I was elected chair just recently also. I've also been involved with the beautification in Lisbon and other projects that require working with Brett Richardson, who's the Economic Development Director. And so the first thing I wanted to say is that I haven't worked with someone with as much energy and creative responses for problems. I haven't worked with someone like that in a really long time, and it's really refreshing. He's a keeper. So I wanted to talk specifically about the Main Street closure and the idea of closing it to help the businesses on Main Street. I know I sent a message, a brief message to all the councilors, and I appreciated the fact that I was able to do that. But I just wanted to reiterate that message, that I really feel that this idea of closing Main Street is not just good for the businesses in Lisbon, and it doesn't just support them. It also supports the town of Lisbon as a whole. And I think I mean that not just economically, but in terms of giving people a really beautiful, bright area and idea to hold on to. I mentioned in my email that with one of my other hats on as Emergency Management Director, that I really feel that this idea of the closure of Main Street for this project, for this reason, is a clear sign of the resiliency that we can expect of Lisbon. It's a clear sign that people in Lisbon are ready and willing to move forward and not just move on, but to move forward and to make ourselves an example. I know there are other towns that are doing similar things and have in the past, but I think it's a really important step for the town of Lisbon. I think it speaks to the strengths of the town as a whole, and I think that it helps to bring everybody together during a time when that is one of the most valuable things we have in town. So I also think it'll attract to those businesses on Main Street and to Lisbon as a whole, folks from outside Lisbon, and I think that's also a really positive thing. I don't see any negatives that aren't hugely outweighed by the positive things that can come from the closure. So that's all I had. I just wanted to endorse that once again and to just reiterate that Brett has just really been a powerful force in making not only that happen, but in working with him with the LDC and on other projects like the beautification of Lisbon. He's really amazing, and I really feel fortunate to be working with him on these things. So thank you very much for listening. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you for coming out tonight.
Thank you for taking chair, too, of the LDC, so give
Thank
some
you.
time.
You want her to give the report?
What's that?
No. We didn't ask you.
I think she touched on a pretty good part of it. Yeah.
Well, Lisa should definitely tell you what she thinks.
Exactly. Anybody else liking to speak before the council tonight on anything on the agenda? All right, we're closing that segment too. Next item
is the consent agenda. The consent agenda items are considered to be routine and will be considered for adoption by one motion with no separate discussion unless the councilor requests an item to be removed for immediate discussion. Any councilor wishing to remove an item may do so now. Seeing none. Order 2020-113 to approve the municipal accounts payable warrants totaling $560,790.77. The municipal payroll warrants totaling $144,448.46. The school accounts payable warrants totaling $185,845.42. And for the school payroll warrants, since posting this at 3 p.m. this afternoon, 3 more payroll warrants came in, which now totals $822,397.64, plus with the minutes for June 2, 2020, and the photocopier maintenance agreement. And if there are no objections, we'd like to add to approve the medical marijuana permits for Delightful Heights, 207 Edibles, Lisbon Cannabis, and the itinerant vendor permit for Gary Kieran doing businesses Anything Goes at 501 Lisbon Street.
Can I make a motion for discussion? I'll take the second.
I'll second.
I have one question. I'm assuming, Diane, that the photocopier maintenance, all 5 of those are below the $10,000 threshold for...
This one's $150.
That's what I expected to hear. I just wanted to make it firm.
We only have one more that we want to convert, but it's not going to be up until, I think, January.
Okay, we're well below the limit, so we're good there. That's what I would just like.
This is more or less for you to allow me to sign the agreement. So.
Right.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
There's one of the items that would be added to this as
Yes.
far as for the licensing that I'd probably abstain from. Should I just abstain from the whole?
If we're going to have one item on this consent agenda, is it better to take it out of order for Mr. LaRochelle, or is it best to have him abstain from the entire consent, Twyla?
Probably, since it's one motion, let's just have you abstain from
From
that.
the entire thing?
That's fine. Yep. Just want to make sure we're all set.
Any other questions? All in favor? Let the record reflect that goes 6-0-1 with Mr. LaRochelle abstaining.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Under Council Orders, Resolutions, and Ordinances, Order 2020-114 to adopt the 2021 school budget warrant articles.
We're going to do out of order to get a couple.
Yep, okay.
Which ones?
For the sake of time, let's move some departments' heads out if we could.
Bids.
Sorry.
Okay, so road striping
That's
bid?
on me.
Yep,
Let's get
that's
it.
next. Yeah, okay. So no objections, we'll do Order 2020-116, the road striping bid award.
Still swagger.
What's that?
Still swagger. How are you, sir?
Good, how are you? Randy Sear, Public Works Director. This year we had a lot of interest in the road striping, and I'd like to award that to Lucas Striping. It's significantly less than last year because we don't have to do all of 196. That's going to get done for us. So this bid came in at just a little over $12,000, correct? And that's a big savings from last year since it was at around $19,251.67.
Perfect. What is the percent per foot compared to last year? Do you remember?
He stayed the same.
That's what the soundbite above your head needed to hear. The fact is they're looking to do last year's pricing, so
His price stayed the same as it did last year.
right on. Thank you, Randy.
For discussion?
I need a second for discussion. I have the first and second. Go.
And again, I know we keep bringing this up. Is that plan to do Davis Street as far as the walking trail part of the breaking off of the wider stripe that you were talking about?
Yep.
Will that be done in the same process?
Yep. I talked to Steve and he said no issues.
And that includes wider crosswalk, more paint on the
We do
crosswalk?
that.
Oh, we do.
The Public Works does that, so,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
And we did it early last year, and we're gonna wait more towards, before school's in session, because about the time August came around, it was pretty much all wore off. So we don't see the need to do it right now, as opposed to just before school comes into play. That way the stripes are nice and bright and visible, so,
Especially in the darkest part of the year.
yes.
And the only thing I may add to that, Chair, if
Yep.
I may, is if we do end up getting some parking down after you spread out the reclaim down there, it would be nice to have the one from going across 196 by Main Street maybe done up, because that one does get kind of faded out over a period of time. But
Which one's that, Fern?
the one right over on Frank's, if we were to get some parking, if that reclaim that you spread out works well, and we would get some parking across the street, just that going from the idea of the cross 196 there by Canal Street for Frank's.
Yeah, so that material's gonna be getting delivered, they're starting to do millings now. I was talking to Ron Simbari from Allstate, and he needed some in his Richmond plant first, and then he's going to start delivering to us. So we'll be able to, when I get the dozer and a couple weeks from now, after that pile gets crushed, that'll get spread out on that, and then I'll be able to make a parking area in the front also.
Yep, I mean, just it may correlate with the idea if we
Yep.
do the 125 closure on Main Street.
Yep.
Ideal extra parking, just crossing 196 is kind of frustrating, so as you know, sometimes.
Right.
So anything we can do as far as crosswalk repainting would be nice in that area. I do totally understand the idea of waiting more to fall to do the school-related ones for sure.
Right, yep.
Do we do anything spring and fall? I know Lewiston actually has set arteries that we actually don't do twice a year. Is there a component in that in our bids?
No.
So it's one time, get them in to get the mobilization to be able to go for that route?
Yep.
Is there any benefit to any areas that could have a second application in the fall or spring?
Not really. I mean, as far as the white and yellow stripes go, they last quite a while. The only thing that I've seen that didn't last were the crosswalk stripes. Those seem to wear off a little bit sooner than what they put down. I don't know if it's a difference in the paint. We get ours from Sherwin-Williams. You know, I don't know if it's different in paint or not. But.
Right. Some of it is what you're throwing down salt, and it's running all year, and it's sitting, baking, drying, cold, just weather susceptibility. I'm just curious, and the fact is because I know that they do that in some of the bigger areas. I just didn't know how it equated to us.
Right.
Any other questions of the Public Works Director on this item? Seeing none, all in favor?
7-0.
Next
Order
item, and I
passed.
believe it's him, right?
Do you have another item, Randy? Or it's
Well, no, I'm
speed.
sorry. I
Okay,
read
so-
road closure, and I'm sorry, I looked at the
So-
wrong guy.
So
Thank
do
you,
we-
Randy.
Do you want to go to order 2020-115, the Davis Street Pump Station and Wastewater Treatment Chlorine Tank Improvement Bid Award?
Hey, good evening, Steve Abiola, Sewer Department. This is the third project of the four main project we're doing with our rural development funding package. And one of the larger projects also. We're basically completely rehabbing the Davis Street Pump Station, our largest pump station, and also enlarging the chlorine contact tanks at the wastewater treatment plant, which will make them about 40% larger. And it's going to be quite the task. I'm actually kind of nervous about it myself, just because 95% of our flow to the wastewater treatment plant goes through the Davis Street Pump Station. And also, the chlorine contact tank is our final part of the treatment process before we discharge the Androscoggin River. So it's two things that, little mistakes could cause big problems for us. So we're hopefully taking baby steps when we do these projects.
I need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second, just for discussion.
Sure, we got a first, we got a second. Anybody who wants to go first?
Steve, you're not instilling a whole lot of confidence in me right now, the way you're
Oh,
talking
no.
about that.
Well, it's just it's a matter of
It's a priority.
when you're talking upwards between 300,000 to 400,000, up to $1 million at times of flow that goes through that Davis Street pump station. One little mistake could be disastrous for us.
What I will say to put it in a better spin is I have no reservations with T-Buck Construction. The
No.
fact is they're a very capable firm, very well, they've done some great work for Lewiston, and I think you got the right firm on this project.
It'll be in the 21 years that I've been here, it'll be the largest project we've undertaken at the treatment plant.
Right. That's the perspective that you're putting on it.
They also did work in Callis while I was there.
Yeah.
For the same type of work.
Yes.
This type of work.
Yep.
This type of work.
They did a
No. Yeah, I have no doubt that they will do good. I just anxiety.
So
And
thinking about the what
because
ifs.
that's the primary place where the water flow goes for the last stop, what's the plan, or have you developed a strong plan to kind of say this is what we think in theory we can do to kind of manage
Yeah,
that?
we're going to do some work. Davis Street pump station work probably will not happen until sometime in the middle of winter when the flows are the lowest. We're going to do some work in the fall to make it easier to totally bypass that pump station with bypass pumps, and go from there. And that's where the biggest part of the job's going to be is we have to actually shut down that pump station, do something with all that flow in order to install these valves to be able to totally isolate the pump station so they can work on it and replace everything inside of it. It's going to be interesting.
I look at it as a great challenge. We have a capable superintendent, we have a great engineering firm working on this, and we got the right contractor. So, what is the line from Apollo 13? This is our day to shine. I can see that coming. You can nip me
I was
the vest.
thinking more failure is not an option,
No.
but hey, whatever.
Nip me the vest. I'll wear it, dude.
And
Yes,
also,
please.
the bids that we did receive actually did come under what we anticipated. No, the
You got
anticipated
contingency
amounts.
money. You have $500,000 worth of contingency money right there. Absolutely.
Well, it kind of offsets our other project that was approved 2 weeks ago for sewer replacements, came in a little higher than anticipated. So it's kind of offsetting those, one being higher, one being lower. It comes right in about where we expected both of them for a total.
Perfect. Yes, Mr. Michelle.
So the upgrading, I mean, right now, I mean, at the end of the day, are we actually just actually, so to speak, reviving what we have at the pump station on Davis Street? Is this actually going to be in a new and improved, more efficient, more, I mean, long-term? I mean, is there some improvements that are being done, or are we just actually renewing what's there?
The only thing that's going to be the same is going to be the shell of the building. Roofing, insulation, everything, all the equipment inside of it, new standby generator, everything's going to be new. Larger pumps.
How much additional capacity? Remind us.
That I really can't answer, but I'm going to guess we're going from 50 horsepower pumps to 60 horsepower, which is only 10 horsepower. Now we're dealing with the same total dynamic head. We could expect to see in the neighborhood of maybe 250 gallons a minute per pump. Now, the limiting capacity is going to be the force main itself. Well, right now, we're putting about 750 to 800 gallons a minute through each pump, but all three running together is only going to put out a small amount, and I would need an engineer here to better answer that question.
And the second part of that is the state actually somewhat workable with us? Because I mean, I know they do measure and test our discharge and stuff. I mean, there has to be some type of fluctuation with this, with all the programs going on. It could cause a concern, or is that pretty mitigated by other means that you do as far as for processing and how it goes through the station? I mean, is the capability of doing all the I would say cleanup of the flow as good then as it will be after, or?
Yeah, well, what's making the chlorine contact tanks larger at the treatment plant, it's going to be in the ballpark about 40% larger. Final settling tank, also make a larger disinfection tank. It will improve the process, and we'll be able to handle higher flows, because we anticipate some higher flows coming from the Davis Street pump station, but I couldn't answer what they are.
Yep, good.
Mr. Chair?
Any other questions, please?
All right, so just out of curiosity, do you have contingency plans in place just in case something does go wrong?
Well, it's hard to say. This is the first time we're crossing this bridge where we're going to totally isolate that station. We do shut it down when we do clean the wet well in it, but not to the extent that we're going to do here, because we have to totally shut the station down, drain the force main in order to put a valve in it to be able to isolate the force main from the pump station for bypass pumping purposes. And the contingency right now is I'm going to cross my fingers and hope that those work as well. We don't anticipate any problems, because it's a matter of being able to flows being at a low enough level to be able to handle them and drain the force main at the same time. It's going to be interesting. It's going to probably something that happens in the middle of the night at a low flow time before fall rains hit.
It's the first time for us, but not the first time for T-Buck.
No, I'm sure that's something that they've dealt with on a regular basis.
Yep.
So how long does the process take? This shutdown.
I'm assuming this line's going to be about 6 or 7 feet in the ground. It could be a matter of 2 or 3 hours, whatever it takes them to cut it, splice it in another valve, and get everything going again. That's why we're going to try to do that in the fall, and then try to do the pump station work itself in the winter when the flows are really low, so it's easier in the bypass pumping.
So I'm sure, and correct me if I'm wrong, and if you can't correct me because you need an engineer, that's fine too. Let's say, okay. So testing will be done prior to, obviously we know what's going on. We have a pretty good understanding of what flow is going through right now and how it fluctuates and where it may surge. That being said, we'll be able to take measurements after to kind of get a better understanding of how we improve maybe on capacity in other areas. Right. But is this work that I'm assuming we have to notify DEP?
DEP is already aware of the work. They actually had to approve these doing these upgrades. They'd be a part of it.
So they're going to be part of this process too, to kind of swoop in after and say, hey, let's take a peek. And it wouldn't be surprising to have them kind of swing by and take a look and give their blessing after the fact.
Typically
correct?
see DEP, probably 3 to 4 times a year.
Yep.
They stop in, do regular inspections.
Anybody else? Thank you. All in favor?
7-0, order passed.
Thank you.
Our greatest hour, remember? Live it, dude.
Finest out.
Greatest hour.
Diane, were you going to take
We
any of the
circling back?
others out?
To the school budget?
Yep.
Is that where you want to go? Okay.
School budget?
All right, so order 2020-114 to adopt the 2021 school budget warrant articles. Article 1, public funding of pre-kindergarten to grade 12 as described in the Essential Programs and Services Funding Act. Shall I just begin with reading the articles, or do you have?
Can I take a step back, because I want to make sure that everybody understands how the item that we will be voting on tonight actually takes us from where we left off 2 weeks ago. At that meeting and shortly thereafter, I polled each of you with where you wanted to land for school budget, knowing that at that point in time I didn't have an answer for our 2 representatives here tonight. I have 4 of you that actually have landed with on the school subsidy page. Quite specifically, you see here local additional funds this year as presented as of tonight lands at $2,504,370, which after all the other pieces to that top component is an increase of local funding over last year of $148,699. That is a 2% increase over last year. Dawn mentioned in one of the other side discussions the adult ed portion. I've ignored it because if you look down below, you see it's essentially a 0% or a $340 difference from the previous year. That said, the exercise that we have before us tonight is the school department needs either our blessing or what we, the majority of this council, will actually support, because it actually sets what becomes the warrant items on the referendum for the July 11th, 14th? Remind me, what's the Tuesday? 14th vote. So, point that I'm making here is the fact that I polled each of you individually and publicly the night before is the fact that if you're landing at 0, you're 2% over. I've heard from at least a couple of individuals that they may have tolerance for something slightly above that. I will be candid and say the fact that I only need 1 vote to actually make this a very different discussion coming out of this tonight. You guys need to actually see where it takes you through the presentation of what's there. For discussion, Article 1 that we have before us would remain unchanged. Article 2 would also remain unchanged, debt service. Article 3, to get back to a 0% increase, would have to be $2,355,671. Article 4 would have to be a $17,489,215. Again, both of those have been reflected for either the $149,699 that they've identified, or the impact of the one above it for revenues in there as well. Article 5, 6, and 7, being adult ed, would remain unchanged. So consider where you're willing to land associated with this, because the action that's necessary would have to be either those numbers or anything that would be tolerant. What I would point to in my last part of this is I've heard from at least one, if not two individuals that said anything potentially possibly shy of 1%. 1% is $74,350. If you're choosing to actually go forward with what I've heard, you need to have something below 74,350 to get below that 1% threshold. Any questions with what I presented you before I turn you to these folks that have done their due diligence? You have the floor, sir.
It's actually ma'am. I'm going to start.
Okay, thanks, Tracy.
And I really don't like ma'am, so.
I'm well aware.
Sir was probably a better statement. So, we met last night. What day is today? I don't even know.
16th.
Tuesday. So yes, we met last night. The whole 2-day notice thing is throwing me a little over the edge. So we met last night. We talked about still our needs versus wants, and we were able to whittle it down to 2% with the hard work of Superintendent Green and his staff, and even going further of putting in actual numbers. That is the number that has come up with it. It still does include looking at a position and the A team did meet and chose that a trauma coordinator would be the best fit from what they were hearing with staff about online family situations and things that they saw and things like that, that a person who would be able to facilitate strategies, programming, that type of thing to teachers during professional development can then in turn push it down to students in handling what we believe we're going to see as some accelerated behaviors for the disruption of COVID-19 in education. And then the other portion of the increases is all tied to salary and benefits. So.
It's my understanding, listening to their meeting last night and hearing the presentation from Tracy, the specifics of everybody's determination of where they're going to land next year versus budgeted. That is known at this point. That is 64, 65 grand. Is that the figure I heard?
When you subtract out
the pluses and minuses, you add the one position plus
the
that.
84,000. Yeah.
Yeah, that's where the 148 is that it's the known specific benefits that are here plus the 84,000 for the salary and benefits for that one position that Tracy's identified.
No.
It's 84,000 is built in as revenue.
Right.
Whether it's not going to be, we're not going to use it technically for a position. We're going to use it for supplies to offset the budget. And then that money will be used. So the offset in the supplies in your regular budget can be used for positions, whereas CARES money, if we were to use it directly for a position, then you get penalized 15 or 20%. So we'll use it for supplies. We'll use it as revenue. It's built in as revenue. The 148 is the actual number. If we started school today, that's what it would cost to operate. So any additional cuts will all have to be, that's conversations we'll have
off
to have.
That number,
we'll
what goes away.
Whether
Correct.
it's student services or whatever, contracted services, all those things.
Everybody got that soundbite? What I would encourage you to be able to do is the fact that it gets dicey with article number 3. So the way that we've proceeded with this in the past is vote on article 1, vote on article 2, and then when you get to number 3, we need to have a discussion. If anybody is still going to land with what I've heard with a 0, we need to figure out what that figure is going to be, because that is where it gets different. Yes.
Just really quick, somebody had texted me and said that they had emailed during audience participation, and I don't know if it was checked, but
yes.
I'm pretty sure it has to do with this.
Let's bring it right here. Thank you. I checked it all the way to get through Lisa, but I have an email from Kelly Rogers. I'd be happy to read it right now. I'm a resident of Lisbon and parent of 3 children coming through our schools. I'm aware of the school budget that will be presented again to the town's council this evening. On that note, while I heard the council's position during your last meeting that you shouldn't be involved with the details of the school budget, however, I think it is a shame to think the council wouldn't be acknowledgeable about the impact of a budget prior to voting on it. The committee is voted into office to present a budget to you that outlines the specific needs of the district while maintaining fiscal responsibility to the town. The school committee has done this prior to the recommendation to come in at a flat budget. While I understand the current times, what is being presented to you tonight is a baby step in the right direction for supporting our students. I have a hard time supporting our budget as it is because I do not think it meets the needs of our students. I am worried about the capacity of our districts to meet the needs of our students as they come back to school, not because they don't have enough skills, but simply because we do not have enough resources available to our educators. I urge you to support this budget. That is the only public commentary that I have heard to this point. So, if everybody's in agreement, the first 2 items would not change from what I have heard at this point. I would ask that Twyla move forward on those 2, and then we have a discussion with Article 3, where I know there's a difference of opinion between the council. You have the floor.
Article 1, public funding for pre-kindergarten to grade 12. As described in the Essential Programs and Services Funding Act, to see what sum the council will authorize the Lisbon School Department to appropriate for the total cost of funding public education from pre-kindergarten to grade 12 as described in the Essential Programs and Services Funding Act. Recommended $14,114,664, and to see what sum the council will raise as the town's contribution to the total cost of funding public education from pre-kindergarten to grade 12, as described in the Essential Programs and Services Funding Act in accordance with the Maine Revised Statutes Title 20A, Section 15688. The explanation is the town's contribution to the total cost of funding public education from pre-kindergarten to grade 12, as described in the Essential Programs and Services Funding Act, is the amount of money determined by state law to be the minimum amount that a municipality must raise in order to receive the full amount of state dollars. School committee recommends $4,577,937.
I would make that motion for discussion. Any discussion on this item?
Was that a second from?
A second right here. Hearing no discussion, all in favor of that item?
No, we have to roll.
Do you want to do a roll call, or?
Do we?
Is it required, Twyla?
I don't think we have in the past.
Ordinances, I don't know, I don't really.
For the official record of the listening dot in the corner, yes, roll call.
All right, let's do it. Counselor Albert.
Yes.
Counselor La Rochelle.
Yes.
Counselor Ward.
Yes.
Counselor Lunt.
Yes.
Counselor Ganong.
Yes.
Counselor Colby.
Yes.
Counselor Fellows.
Yes.
Article 2.
7 yeses. Order passed. Article 2 is debt services, to see what sum the council will authorize the Lisbon School Department to raise and appropriate for the annual payments on debt service previously approved by the legislative body for non-state funded school construction projects or non-state funded portions of school construction projects, in addition to the funds appropriated as the local share of the school administrative unit's contribution to the total cost of funding public education from pre-kindergarten to grade 12. The explanation here is non-state funded debt service is the amount of money needed for the annual payments on the municipality or district's long-term debt for major capital school construction projects and minor capital renovation projects that is not approved for state subsidy. The bonding of this long-term debt was previously approved by the voters or other legislative body.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I need a second.
I'll second.
As this has already been set by the voters and everything else, this should be a formality. You call the roll call, Twyla.
Counselor Albert?
Yes.
Counselor La Rochelle?
Yes.
Counselor Ward?
Yes.
Counselor Lunt?
Yes.
Counselor Ganong?
Yes.
Counselor Colby?
Yes.
Counselor Fellows?
Yes.
7 yeas, 0 nays, order passed.
Article 3, Twyla.
Oops, I went too far, hang on. Funding.
It's okay, we can go to page 3.
Article 3, funds exceeding the state's EPS allocation model. Shall the town of Lisbon raise and appropriate $2,504,370 in additional local funds, which exceeds the state's essential programs and services allocation model by an additional $63,931, as required to fund the budget recommended by the school committee. The school committee recommends $2,504,370 for additional local funds and gives the following reasons for exceeding the state's essential programs and services funding model by an additional $63,931. This covers co-curricular and extracurricular activities, the teacher retirement portion that was previously paid by the state, substitute pay, special education, and nutrition. School committee recommends $2,504,370. The explanation is the additional local funds are those locally raised over and above the school administrative unit's local contribution to the total cost of funding public education from pre-kindergarten to grade 12, as described in the Essential Programs and Services Funding Act, and local amounts raised for the annual payments on non-state funded debt service that will help achieve the Lisbon School Department's budget for educational programs.
Make a motion?
Second.
For discussion only.
Yep.
Please, if you don't mind a friendly amendment on that. That said, you have the floor.
I was just curious how you want to handle these, because I mean, in some aspects, it'd be interesting to see if we actually go through at face value and see if it actually gets moved or stopped. And then if it actually gets voted down, then you could actually move into a different discussion, or you actually want to make a discussion before we actually, would we actually?
Preferably, I'd like to actually go through this and get what we would vote on there, but we could go just that recourse.
I was just curious, because it'd be pretty hard to know exactly how the council body feels without actually running through a vote prior to the idea of discussion.
I mean, like a straw vote?
Poll, but
Like a straw vote or something?
no, I mean, we could actually, again.
We have a motion on the floor. You vote it down, you come back with a counter motion.
Exactly, if that's, I mean.
The point that I'm making is the fact that I'll be candid, this right now is a 3-4 vote against this with everything that I've heard to hear. I would be inclined to actually hear what everybody has heard, knowing what they know now, and see if that is still the temperament of the group that we actually did before we voted something down and had to force it at a lesser amount. And if that is truly the desire of the majority, then so be it. But right now, if we could actually have this be the motion that isn't voted down, I would preferably go that route rather than sending that message just by flat voting it down, in my opinion. Is everybody in agreement on that?
Yes.
So you're looking for discussion?
I'm looking for talking points right now associated with that is what we had.
I would like to clear up a couple of things if I can.
Sure.
Or get it cleared up. $63,931 increase. That's about 1.02% or something like that. However, the $148,699, where's that? What's the rest of that coming from? Is that's the increase in the local share?
Yes. And that is the piece that directly correlates to what you will see in the taxes for the percentage.
So if this motion is approved, 63.9, then if we don't want 148, we want 63.9, that's coming out of Article 4?
Yes, both. You need to adjust. The one that's the fuzziest to recalculate is number 3, because there's other components that go into that number. It is not strictly the 63,931 added back to the figure or reduced there, but
well, it's total additional local funds.
Yes, you need to go back and calculate the total additional funds.
Yeah.
So I'll give you by way example, Don. The fact that if you're voting for a 0% increase, and that's where you choose to live, which is what I've heard from some, that figure needs to be $2,355,671. And somebody can double check me on that math, because I was doing a half a dozen different things.
Looks like it should be $2,440,439.
No, you did the same thing I did the first time too, which is take the 2,504,370 and then subtract the 148,699, which is an error. Because where I caught that, Don, is right now, if you look at total local only additional funds, stands at an increase of 63,931.
Right.
There's additional pieces that go into that. You're missing that piece, the other 74,000. Okay? But the reason I didn't get hung up on that is my point being is it will be a lesser number, and it will be the one that ultimately comes out of here, if it's supported, that will appear on that ballot. So we need to get that number established. I guess to point, are you, because you've asked the question for clarification, is there anything else that needs to be clarified before?
Now, if it's clear with everybody else.
May I?
Chief, please.
The, again, a couple different things the way I said on this, and it may be people agree or not agree. I mean, a couple factors. One, I truly believe we have a school board that's elected to bring a budget to us. One of the things I'm always concerned about as a counselor is actually trying to achieve a dedicated number to make sure there's no increase in taxes, which actually doesn't mean nothing any year. I mean, I think as a council, we should have been quite aware of that last year when we came in. We thought we had a pretty flat budget, but we had one of the biggest increases in several years only because of calculations we can't control. So, I mean, to actually think that we're going to actually hit a magic number tonight and not see an increase or some change in taxes means actually zero. Actually zero. There's no guarantee that we even drop the budget by $500,000 tonight that our budgets that taxes won't be increased. So hopefully that we're not working on the assumption that we find a magic number tonight and there's actually, when people open up their tax bills, there's no increase, because there's certain things that we have zero control over, and part of that is revenues. And
even if they're in our control, they're still not known.
Exactly. And another point I just want to bring forward is, I mean, at times the council doesn't, or the school board doesn't get credited for the amount of work they actually do throughout the year to actually make a budget. It is what it is. And one of the things I've been trying to highlight over the last several years with the school and the municipality is that our uncontrollable costs that go up every year. With the school, with the town, we actually have, I don't know, Diane, is it right around the 240,000 or 230,000 a year of uncontrollable costs that comes into our budget every year? Basically, that we have no control of, that actually it just increases due to budgetary and other items. The school, I believe last year I calculated theirs at about 460, 450. So, I mean, that's $450,000 increases every year. There was actually a time when we were actually looking at our budget and something that didn't come through this year, but hopefully next year will happen, is actually a finance committee where there are municipalities out there in other states that actually look at a standardized tax increase over a number of years, so the residents can know over the next 5 years what their tax is going to be over the next 5 years, and the municipalities have to stand to that. But it's unreasonable to think that you're going to keep your taxes flat, because it just doesn't work that way. So, I mean,
oh, it does, but you better be prepared for the level of service that you just cut from the budget.
Exactly. I mean, if you take the two numbers and actually add them together between the school and the municipality, if you're talking almost $700,000 of uncontrollable costs, if you keep eliminating that every year, you get to the point where you actually are not providing the services that people actually recommend or need or are accustomed to. I guess that's a better way. So, I mean, to me, I think we would be very careful in a sense, the idea of trying to hit a benchmark number, not knowing if that number is actually going to result to what we need, and then be short-sighted on the other side of it to not actually be able to provide the services we want. And I do give credit to the town staff this year for bringing their budget in where they did. I think they went over and beyond the idea of coming where they are. And I know the school actually had a lot more wants than they actually are coming forward with, only because they actually see the gravity of the situation we're in. But when you start looking at numbers of several $1 million, then to me the idea of bickering over a couple $100,000, which seems a lot, but it's really not in the sense of the scheme of the idea of an operation of a business that big, if we are looking at that manner. So, I mean, I myself actually would prefer to actually move forward with what's written and what's projected on the forms, because it's already done, it's here for us, and the school board itself has to take the weight of the taxpayers and actually justify it, and the same thing with the municipality, because again, just because we come up with some magic number, think it's going to be zero, it may not fall true to be that way. And I don't want to make any promises that just don't happen. So, again, the idea of the school board presented this, it's actually written out front of us. There's no recalculations. We can prove it the way it is. And if there's any discrepancies at that point, it's actually done out of our control, not so much what we actually try to recalculate here tonight. That's just my point.
I get that. I really do. I get that. But I also think we have a responsibility to other people. We have a responsibility to taxpayers. We have a responsibility to each other to come in at a reasonable sum. And if I can guarantee you, if we're going up 2% on the school budget or whatever it is, where taxes are going up. They're not going flat. They're not even going close to flat. I can tolerate a 1%, and that's all I can tolerate.
Okay. I've heard two opposing views. I appreciate Councilor Shell actually speaking on this item, because anybody that's talked to me in the last 2 weeks on this, I've pumped the brakes on anybody that wants to look left or right and look at total budget and how that plays to the tax bill, because there are too many things that are still being packaged at this point in time to be able to look at that, to be able to have Diane be able to forecast where we're going to be if we're still at a zero at this. I can't tell you, which is why I've always told you, and I've delivered the message to our business partners in the corner here, is the fact that it's best to consider the discussion for zero and come in close to zero as you can. And we haven't wavered in that associate, because that's the cleanest method to be able to consider this topic. And the school committee has done so, and you have before you tonight where they land after last night's discussion.
Mr. Chair?
Please.
So, I think I've been pretty plain, and I think folks know where I land on this. So, one thing I want to bring up in talking about 0% and that being the final place where we want to land, and we do have a responsibility to the taxpayers, Dawn, you're absolutely right. But I'd like to think as a taxpayer in this community, when I think about the 0% on the municipal side, and I think about how we got there and the credit that we'll give to the staff on that side for really digging and doing some great work to get themselves flat. One thing, we'll take a look at the school side, there's a difference here. Municipal side doesn't have an impact and compromise the humans and the human toll that it will take. And what I mean by that is students are impacted by cuts to folks that support them. Cuts that are made on the municipal side could be equipment, could be other things, but it's not have, all those department heads are not going to compromise their students' mental health and safety. And that's what we're asking here. We're asking to forego a $148,000 increase so we can come in at a zero number. So it feels good because we're not raising taxes. But as a taxpayer, I'm good with 148. They being the school committee, took a leap-off number of 9%, which every year we know the leap-off number is never going to be the final number, but that's where they leap off from. That's the idea behind budget workshops, is you work things down. So then from 9 to 2. And they understand fully, we all understand fully the impacts of the current pandemic. So I would say when I look at that, the only add here, and I would again categorize it as a need, is to go ahead and have somebody in place to help students adjust and help staff adjust. So it's twofold. And that's why I feel confident that this is the right thing to do. And I feel taxpayers are going to look at that, and there'll be some that can't make everyone happy. There'll be some that say we should have come in at zero. I agree. That's certainly true. That's what we hoped for. But I know for me, I'm not going to let the $148,000 be the sticking point as to why we don't support the staff and the kids at that school, because it's a mental health issue. It is. If we don't support them, we will look at impacts. We could look at impacts financially that are far greater than $148,000. If the students have to go out of district for support, we heard from in our last meeting, we're not talking about a pittance here. We're talking about a couple $100,000. You get a couple of students out of district, that 148 that we should have brought on, that maybe could have saved us some of those expenses, are now pittance compared to the $400K or more, depending on how many students may go that way. So I would urge my fellow counselors to think that through before we make any final decisions on when you're voting tonight. Thank you.
Who would like to go next? Anybody?
I'd like to hear from other people, if we can. Opinions?
Sure.
Mark, I'm looking at you.
Well, while I would have really liked to see us hit 0%, I'm willing to support the school committee's recommendation if that's what is your bare minimum that you really think you can get down to without hurting the students.
It is.
So I would support the budget as presented.
Okay. Anything else, Mark? I don't want to cut you short, sir.
Nope.
Jeff?
Mr. Chair, I was one of the people who I think my text back to you said it was a firm 0%. And one of the big reasons for that is, again, not so much on the budget side, but on the revenue side, things could be pretty bad for us this year in terms of coming in. And so the idea of hiring or adding another position to the school with the potential that, at some point time later this year, we're going to have to really come back to this budget, and it seems to be an unwise decision.
Okay. To the point that was brought, and Diane's mentioned it on the town side, and I know Rick spoke to it 2 weeks ago, is the fact that just because there's a budget that actually goes before the voters, doesn't mean that the funds are immediately available in that regard. He's already communicated that this budget he is expecting will already be immediately frozen because we don't know what if. What he's trying to do is he's trying to draw the line in the sand, as the fact is at least I know what I have for funding available when the shit proverbially does hit the fan. It's the fact that we haven't stripped any more out of it than he feels is the bare bones to get to here. Is that a fair assessment, Mr. Green?
I probably wouldn't use those words, but yes.
Mr. Chair, may I just
Yes.
ask clarification and something you had mentioned, Jeff, and maybe it's you're looking at a different level than myself, but one thing that I know as a council, I mean, this is the depth that we get into the school budget. So if there's once it's all approved by the voters and come school season, there's a $500,000 curtailment from the state. It really has nothing to do with the council by any means. It would never come back to us. That's going to be the hot, heated meetings of the school board and the administration. So basically, this is our level of scrutinizing or approving or not approving the school budget. After this, if they come in short of revenues, it's really up to the administration to figure out how that plays out. So,
Right.
Again, that's just for clarification.
Anything else, sir? I kind of want to cut you off. I know that was a good point because both parties have spoken to what actions are going to be taken whether this budget goes through anyways. Okay, anything else? No? Cassie?
I'm still where I was at before at 0%.
Okay. Anybody else have anything new that they'd like to offer? Because I have what I need in this room tonight already, and I'm
Well,
ready to
I
move
was
the
going to make
item.
a comment, because you have what you need, I know you do.
You want my public? I've
no,
yet
I
to
wanna
give
give you
it in
another
3
comment.
weeks.
I want to give you another comment.
Okay.
It looks to me like that's
As long as it's new, Dottie.
it's 23 cents mill rate.
Yes. That is true.
23 cents is not big money. It is money, but it's 23 cents. Well, since I'm in the minority now, I'll support it anyway. I'll support you.
And if one of the strengths that I've always said in this room is the fact is that we're 7 people and everybody's an individual. I know what I'm saying. I know what I'm thinking when I came in. The fact is, kind of like Rick's comment before, the fact is I would never speak on his behalf. If you ever met Lois, I would say this kind of stuff in front of my mother because she was that kind of woman, but he is capable of his own. I just want to make sure that in the way that I heard it and paraphrased it, that I had it accurately reflected. Reason I speak in riddles is usually people can't handle my bluntness. When I give you blunt, you got 100%, and it's usually within 6 words. If it smells like fish, I know what I'm having for dinner. That said, I'm going to ask to move the item because I have a consensus in here tonight. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
All right, so you're ready to vote. Counselor Albert?
Yes.
Counselor LaRochelle?
Yes.
Counselor Ward?
Yes.
Counselor Lunt?
Yes.
Counselor Ganong?
No.
Counselor Colby?
No.
Counselor Fellows?
Yes.
5 yeas, 0 nays. Order passed.
Thank you. Next item?
Wouldn't that be 5-2? I'm sorry. I heard you say 0 nays.
2 nays. Yes, it would be.
Thank you. Just wanted to make sure we got
Tell
that.
him to say no more often.
He eat riddles.
Article 4, expend for fiscal year 2020-21 to see what sum the council will authorize the Lisbon School Committee to expend for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2020 and ending June 30th, 2021 from the town's contribution to the total cost of funding public education from pre-kindergarten to grade 12 as described in the Essential Programs and Services Funding Act, non-state funded school construction projects, additional local funds for school purposes under the Maine Revised Statutes Title 28, Section 15690, unexpended balances, tuition receipts, state subsidy, and other receipts for the support of the school. School committee recommends $17,637,914.
I need a motion.
Make the motion.
A second.
I got the first, and I got the second.
I have,
Discussion?
I have a question.
Please.
Too. So I'm looking at Article 4 at 17,637,914. I would like to ask where that comes from, because does that include adult ed?
No, adult ed's separate, so next page.
Adult ed is strictly page 3.
That's what I thought.
Yes.
That's what I thought.
This
But then I'm
is-
seeing on the breakdown sheet, total increase in budget, including adult education, is a totally different number.
If you go to the very top of the subsidy comparison report,
Uh-huh.
the total budget is 17,637,914, and then if you add the 33,618, that's where you get the 17,671.
Okay.
That's where you see your 17,637,914 too, Don.
Okay, I got it. Okay.
Yeah.
This is such an
No,
interesting thing to look at.
Yeah, the state, so the way the state has us report it's weird.
It's okay, Don. 4 years ago, we were having a self-proclaimed apostle actually explain this to us, and that meeting went to hell, too.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Anybody sitting in the room? Did I pull any punches on that one?
No. No riddles.
Any other dialogue on that item? If not, I'll move that question too, please. Roll call.
All right. Counselor Fellows?
Yes.
Counselor Colby?
No.
Counselor Ganong?
No.
Counselor Lunt?
Yes.
Counselor Ward?
Yes.
Counselor La Rochelle?
Yes.
And Counselor Albert?
Yes.
5 yeas, 2 nays, order passed. Article 5, adult education and raise funds as the local share. To see if the council will authorize the Lisbon School Department to appropriate $33,618 for adult education and to raise $22,234 as the local share, with authorization to expend any additional incidental or miscellaneous receipts in the interest and for the well-being of the adult education program. School committee recommends yes.
I need a motion.
Make the motion.
I need a second.
Second.
Any discussion? Adult ed seems pretty straightforward. It's $320, I believe, from last year.
No, it's the same as last year.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Hearing none. Roll call, Twyla.
Counselor Fellows?
Yes.
Counselor Colby?
Yes.
Counselor Ganong?
Yes.
Counselor Lunt?
Yes.
Counselor Ward?
Yes.
Counselor La Rochelle?
Yes.
And Counselor Albert?
Yes.
7 yeas, 0 nays, order passed.
Next.
Article 6, adult education. To see what sum the council will authorize the Lisbon School Department to expend for adult education. School committee recommends $33,618.
Make the motion.
I need a second.
Second.
Give it Dawn.
Did you beat me?
You can own that one, right?
Everybody's keeping score. Don's up one.
Oh.
Any other discussion on this item? Call the roll, please, Twyla.
Counselor Ganong?
Yes.
Counselor Colby?
Yes.
Counselor Fellows?
Yes.
Counselor Lunt?
Yes.
Counselor Ward?
Yes.
Counselor La Rochelle?
Yes.
And Counselor Albert?
Yes.
7 yeas, 0 nays, order passed.
Next, Twyla.
Article 7, federal and state grants or programs. In addition to amounts approved in the preceding articles, shall the council authorize the school committee to expend sums as may be received from federal or state grants or programs or other sources during the fiscal year for school purposes, provided that such grants, programs, or other sources do not require the expenditure of other funds not previously appropriated. School committee recommends yes.
I make the motion.
I need a second.
Second.
Discussion? Call the roll.
Counselor Fellows?
Yes.
Counselor Albert?
Yes.
Counselor Colby?
Yes.
Counselor La Rochelle?
Yes.
Counselor Ganong?
Yes.
Counselor Ward?
Yes.
And Counselor Lunt?
Yes.
7 yeas, 0 nays. Order passed.
Any other business on this? Have one. The fact that now we have a majority coming out of this council and the schools committee's support, we have our efforts cut out ahead of us to be able to educate our voters, just like we always do, for the July 14th, that it is in their best interest for the reasons that they've provided. So that said, please, that was the reason we went through this process starting back in March to get to here, is the fact that one of the things that we've done in the last 4 years is worked very specifically to build up the trust and the business partnerships between us and the school department, because it takes both sides of this to be able to educate as many taxpayers as we can for why it is in our combined best interest. Anything that you want to have the last word, Tracy, please?
Nope.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Get out and vote. Absentee. It's going to be the cool kids doing it.
Yes, absentee ballots are available tomorrow. We'll call the school department and get the notice of amounts from them.
Thank you, Twyla.
Okay.
Next item?
We are on Order 2021-17 Main Street, Lisbon Falls Road closure.
Bring that fine man in.
Yep. All you, Brett.
Let's go, kid. You're going to litter this year.
How's everybody doing tonight?
Good.
Good.
Excellent. Brett Richardson, Economic and Community Development Director. Here to continue our conversation about the temporary closure of Main Street. We talked last council meeting, June 2nd, about an emergency ordinance that would create a mechanism to do that. It's a great team effort. We've got departments here in town, Public Works, Parks and Rec, Police, Fire, weighing in, offering input, and they've all signed off and support the initiative. We've had great community input from the Lisbon Development Committee and other folks, and then also great input from the business community. One, for the folks who can use the space there on Main Street. There's strong interest and a need for it. And then from the neighbors on Main Street as well, they're all supportive of the concept based on the plan that we've laid out. So the general idea is to block off the lower end of Main Street at 196 up about a third of the block to the access road there in front of Mike's Flooring. And that creates two things: a pretty sizable space where we think we can get 24 tables for the restaurants out there during the evening, which can be a huge benefit, especially if they're able to take advantage of the opportunity to have some tables inside as well. So it's an add-on to what they currently can do as of 2 days ago. And then at some level, it's an insurance policy going forward if things change. And what happened 2 days ago is rescinded. So 24 tables is the idea there, good outcome, and it also allows the traffic flow to continue. So we're here tonight to ask your endorsement of that plan, to hear any input from the public or members of the council as well, obviously, and then to attach a budget item to it to start to implement some of these practices. We had a good conversation with the Maine DOT this morning. They have to offer sign-off because it's a state route. They've been very responsive, very supportive. We have another meeting scheduled on short notice tomorrow up the chain of command to get further sign-off, but anticipate that the DOT is going to sign off as well. We put a draft request to the DOT that you would have seen as an attachment. The request runs from June 23rd, which we probably won't hit in terms of implementation, through Labor Day, September 8th. So it leaves us a good run there. I think the consensus among staff is that setting a good area that creates a good benefit, minimizes impacts, and then leaving it there is the right approach. The public can get used to it, learn how to navigate around it. It keeps costs down because there's fewer moving parts. And I think Chief Hagan in particular appreciated the sort of set it and leave it approach just for predictability and ease of management. So that's the first request, is to discuss that. Our detour plan that I can see on Councilor Ganong's computer screen has gotten a little bit different. It's been simplified. It's actually been the most complex part of the challenge, as you can imagine. We've gone to one street as a recommendation to DOT, and that's School Street. It's of a similar quality. It can carry the same loads as Main Street. It's in good condition. It's shorter. It's predictable and easy. But it requires 73 signs to be in compliance with the appropriate approved trade industry standard for signage. So that was news to me, and I think it was news to everybody that it would take that many signs to execute this. But DOT is supportive of it, providing good input, and the Androscoggin Valley Council of Governments has been a key partner in developing a really good plan. So that's where we're at, and if we can get the endorsement and move forward within the next couple days, making purchases, ordering equipment, we're shooting for a July 1 implementation.
Can I take a motion for discussion?
Second.
All right, I have for discussion. Questions about Brett,
The mayor.
please.
Yes, do we have any concept
No.
of when DOT is going to approve it?
I'm just amusing myself. Go.
Yeah.
I think relatively quickly. So we were working with the Southern Region traffic engineer, who's now going on vacation. So, what's that?
I'm waving her in. She's got a vested interest.
Oh, okay. All right. But I was really impressed because he introduced us to the next engineer who cleared his schedule to meet tomorrow morning and have a follow-up conversation on some improvements we made. So I think that the DOT understands the economic challenges that are facing the state of Maine, and I think the administration generally understands that folks need to see action, and I've been impressed by how responsive and supportive the DOT has been. So I anticipate a relatively quick approval.
It's encouraging that they're cutting red tape to try to make this thing move faster. My question is about budget. I know I heard you say the next step would be after if we would to move forward with this tonight, this plan, and approve, then would be the budgeting of and starting to. And I'm not going to hold you to it, but any ballpark on this? I know it's all brand new.
Yep.
Where do you think we're going to land, or at least kind of spitballing to start it out?
No, it's a good question. So, and I think to start that off, I would say that I think where we start with in terms of what it looks like and how it feels and how it's set up may not be where it ends. Mm-hmm. But I think the town contribution would be roughly $67.50 right now. The good thing about that is they're all assets. It's really not a lot of soft costs. We'll have waste concrete blocks that Randy can use from Public Works. He'll have plenty of detour signs in the event that we need it in the future. And then we'll have some picnic tables as well that Mark Stevens has helped source and take the lead on that could then be redeployed if needed out into the parks. So those are, again, all assets. The good thing, and it's the next agenda item that we'll talk about, I believe, if I'm in the right order, is the Keep Maine Healthy Municipal Grant Program, which is a reimbursement program through the state that many of these expenses are eligible for. So hopefully they're short term and we'll get reimbursed for them.
Thank you.
So $67.50, give or take, and hopefully we'll get some of that back.
Fair enough. I just wanted to make sure that for the eye in the sky, that they understood that we're not just writing a blank check when it comes to trying to get this as much as we certainly want to see some sort of development down there. So
yeah, and hats off to Randy Sear, actually, because the 73 signs, that was news today, and that's a sizable chunk of that $67.50. Randy put his head down and put his pencil out and designed a way to save some money on blocks. So so we're working together across departments, and Randy's been doing a great job.
Mr. Chair?
Sure.
Regarding the amount of money that we're putting in, or investment in infrastructure that we're putting into it, what do you view as the odds of repeating it next year? Granted, I know we have a temporary ordinance, but it seems to me that it could be something useful year after year.
Oh, yeah, I'm very optimistic of that. I think it's the type of space that once the community feels it and sees it, they're really going to see value in it. A farmer's market has come up. I know Casey, Councilor Colby's would love to see that. It's a great opportunity. I think we're working on a Wi-Fi hotspot where the community can come hang out and have free internet. And I think it's going to be a great outcome this year on relatively short notice. I think we'll pull it off in a good way, and I think we'll have more time to plan, and also tie it into the community entrepreneurship program that we're working on, and create that space during the day when the restaurants aren't using it as an opportunity for pop-ups and different promotions for folks who are looking to start businesses. Painting classes, yoga classes, coffee cart in the morning, breakfast sandwiches.
Live music.
Yeah, that's exactly. No brainer. I think it's going to be a huge asset, and I think when communities create these type of spaces, they catch fire and people love them, and they can't believe they didn't have it in the past.
Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
The concern I have, that's not a huge concern, but the idea of the controlling of the space. I mean, once we establish the space, we already know the established businesses that are in the location that will be benefiting from it. What is going to be the source of determining who and what and when happens there? Is that going to be done strictly through your office? Is there going to be some type of protocol for that? It's one of those things where, it may run a bunch of people, may have some different and wild and crazy ideas, and maybe some really neat ideas, but that has to be kind of a controlled, resource, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Do you plan on that being done through your office? And is there going to be a protocol for the idea of people using the space and not using the space? Because a lot of it comes down to insurances and liabilities and all that type of stuff, I would assume.
Yeah, it's a great point. I think that there's two questions, sort of a threshold for what it takes to use the space, and then how the decision's made. And I think in terms of how the decision's made, I could see working with the LDC, PCL, the entrepreneurship team to set some kind of criteria and a process, and then probably just to keep things smooth, could run that through my office, at least as a trial. We're figuring this out, so we're setting this up, but I think that's a way to go about it. That's a good way to go about it. So get input to set it up, and then hopefully it runs fairly smoothly after that, with opportunities to check in with the council, opportunities to check in with LDC, all the above. So that's the process I would recommend. And then in terms of a threshold, I think baseline, whoever's using that space has to comply with social distancing. And that would require a certain level of sophistication, I think, to pull off, to have that type of plan that would set us at a good bar for folks who can stay above that bar, that will have some confidence that they can use the space in the right way. I think if there was, and when there will be, that greater demand for the space, that'll be a really good problem.
Absolutely.
That'd be a really good problem. But we'll work through that. And I think, we mentioned on June 2nd at the first council meeting, we're going to work through this, and we haven't thought of all the answers and all the questions, and we'll approach it with good faith, and we'll keep an open dialogue and make sure that all the different stakeholders are being heard. We've got a meeting tomorrow down there to talk about the tables with the folks who will be using those tables. So that's one thing I think I'm proud of, is the way that this has really been a team approach. All the different departments have been really responsive, weighed in. I'm impressed by the Main Street businesses who, frankly, on the face of it, don't immediately have something to gain, but they're supportive of the community. I think in the long run, they will benefit from this. But everybody's really stepped up, and I think there's a good commitment to making this work, and working through the challenges together in good faith.
My biggest concern is not to overburden you once this whole thing comes into play. If we have everything in place, so you don't have to make decisions on the fly. You can actually have a protocol to go by and not be overburdened with the idea of saying yes or no or why. To me, that's an important factor, just so it doesn't become a burdensome type of situation.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. That's a good point.
I would go one step further to that point, is I would like to see a formalization that actually has to come back here. We have permitting for everything else that has to come before the council. If there's somebody that's actually looking for this space, I want to know what the need is, and I want it coming before us. In that regard is the fact that we have what the intent was here for the downtown businesses. How do you know you don't have an entity coming in from the outside that running completely contrary, because now you've opened up a space that doesn't have any controls over it? I would like to see the level of formality have to come back for us. If I have to, we just did a food truck for Mr. Karen tonight. why shouldn't we have a permitting to be able to be used in this space as well? That's my point. And the next capacity I asked Tracy to come in is because she's 50% of 2 restaurants that are right there associated with that. With what's actually being discussed, Tracy, from your perspective, does that help with the conversation that we were having with capacity?
It helps considerably, because as I was doing my tape measure with my tables and my chairs tonight, I have 4 tables that can seat people because of the structure of our building. And depending on if groups come in groups of 4, groups of 2, will depend on how many are able to sit at the bar with 3 stools being blank in between. So it will help considerably. And let's face it, apparently, dropping decisions on a dime is something that we do a lot these days. So it could be closed in 2 weeks. So the outside option is what will make us survive.
Right. Now that is the same question to you, Brett, the fact that the other 50% here associated with that, the recent social media posts associated with their direction, have you had a chance to talk to them to speak to this? Would that help them to be able to reconsider where they're at?
Yeah, they're very excited about it. I mean, I think that they're, and I don't want to speak for them directly, but I think they're doing their best to adapt to an uncertain time, and they're in a little bit of a holding pattern until they have some more confidence. But I think that there's a strong desire to use this and opportunities to use it in unique ways. So yeah, they'll be back online, I believe, in relative short order. But there's a ramp up period, so it's going to take some time to order the food, to staff up, and to get ready. And
it's
so
not 2 days, just so you know.
Yeah, exactly. Which, to your point about a process coming back through this body, I think that's perfectly reasonable by your next meeting, which I believe is July, in the 20s, mid-July. I think that'll give us a time to have a soft launch down there and work out some of these different criteria, and that'll give anybody who wants to use the space time to start ramping up and making a plan. They'll need time for that too, so I think there's a good approach there.
Just a general curiosity question, the fact that 24 tables available to 2 restaurants, how do the logistics work on that? Do I have 24 tables for whoever shows up? Is it a Frank's or a Flux customer, first come, first serve, or how's that been fielded?
I think one of the, and I encourage Tracy to jump in at any time, but I think one of the beauties of this plan is that it allows the restaurants to use that as an extension of their premises. And so that means if they're going to serve alcohol out there as part of their regular service, it needs to be in an area that's delineated as their extended premises. That means they'll have a rope or some kind of barricade around where their tables are. So those things would happen at any given before the evening. But that's something that we'll actually spend a little time talking about together tomorrow morning, is working through some of those things. If restaurants are at a different stage in terms of their reopening and different needs and different logistics, that's a point that will be made tomorrow, I think, from a town perspective, just to keep everything above board and appropriately manage this, that we all need to work together, and we all need to have an open dialogue and make sure that it's fair and that really we're maximizing the space.
Right. That was, you picked up what I was putting down. My question, I guess, back to Tracy is the fact, is there anything from licensing that we need to address, and is it to happen sooner than what the timeline is out there now for your?
Nope, I received an email on Monday that the documents that you extend, my renewal was up anyway, but the extension was also part of your approval that night. My extension has been approved. So I'm assuming Flux's has been too, because we both did it the same night.
Right.
But in that, he was correct. There has to be, during service, there has to be
as long as that area is defined, you're covered.
Of definition, because I can't be serving alcohol to his customers. I can't be serving them to mine, and us still be
in
legal
compliance
under our licenses.
Right. Okay. But if that area is clearly defined, you guys can work out the logistics associated with that, and you're covered with current licensing.
Yeah.
Is what I needed to hear.
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Yep, both health and liquor.
Please. Anybody
Jerry
else?
Barnard hit on a great idea, and he said it'd be nice to sit at a table and have a Flux flag and a Frank's flag and be able to wave to whoever you wanted. I thought that was pretty clever.
Mr. Chair, there was the night of the LDC meeting down there, there was a lot of interest in when we walked downtown, and a lot of interest in future development for that area, what it could look like, and where you could store things, and how you keep security, and just generally really excited about that prospect of everybody that was there. So
yeah, it was a fun conversation. There's good energy at it, and I think that bodes well for how the community at large will respond.
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
So Brent, this kind of follows up with a question I asked the last meeting. How are you getting the word out to our citizens that this is happening? And secondarily, to people outside of our town that we are going to be opening up our downtown and, hey, come on down?
Yeah, it's a great question, and the DOT is very paying close attention to that as well. So I think the way that we're thinking about it is we would do a series of email blasts to the distribution list of the town over 2 weeks. Let's say we've got roughly 2 weeks from tomorrow to get these pieces in place. And so we would start as soon as the formal approval was granted. We would send that first one out and let everybody know it's coming. We would replicate that over time. We would do the same thing with social media over time. I would canvass Main Street again and talk to each business and remind them. And I'll canvass the school street and knock on doors and leave flyers to make sure folks know if they have questions or concerns that they can talk to me and we would answer them. So it's a multimedia approach. I think we didn't send a press release out last time because it was too premature. But I think coming out of this meeting and with the commentary from DOT, I think we're going to be on solid footing to start to talk about specifics. And I think there'll be interest from the media about that. So I don't anticipate a problem getting the word out, both with shoe leather through the existing channels the town has and then through the media.
Both from curiosity and work and individual interest. The fact is, I'm tired of seeing other downtowns getting promotion associated with this. So, by all means, hit the media outlets to be able to have it be our main street.
And I think the idea of maybe a little bit of diversion down there is actually going to be a good warm-up for the reconstruction of that area in a couple of years, you mean? So it may give people an idea of where to park, where not, and how to travel around. And, you know, let's face it, that when that project happens, if it ever happens in our lifetime, it will actually be kind of the same idea, right? I mean, a lot of that would be actually blocked. What's
exactly.
that?
You'll have all the detour signs.
Yeah. Deploy our assets.
Who knows? We may be asking them to go ahead and reroute some of those monies because we'd like to close that down on a permanent basis. I know, who knows?
Still needs to be done,
Exactly.
though. It's construction part of it. But, yeah.
We can spread those monies around in different parts, different projects. But, yeah.
Any other questions of Brett?
Thank you, sir. Appreciate all you do.
All in favor? All in favor.
Way to lead the charge. Thank you.
7-0, order passed.
Next item.
Order 2020-118, Keep Me Healthy Municipal Grant.
So this is the program I mentioned that's administered through the DHHS, and we will put together a budget, put the application in. I think all the expenses are eligible. The traffic signs we'll have to make a case for, but I think they're eligible. Being in Androscoggin County, Diane made the point, you know, Androscoggin County's been treated, lumped in with the southern part of the state, and there's been debate about that. So I think hopefully there's a desire to help make us whole here in Androscoggin County. Point being, I think that we have a pretty good chance to, if not get half of that $67.50 back, hopefully a little more.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
I'm not inclined to pay the whole $7,000 if there's any opportunity. Anybody else feel otherwise? All in favor?
Order passed, 7-0.
Next.
Order 2020-119, the Lisbon Beautification Reserve.
And this comes out of the energy that Councilor Fellows mentioned. You know, we were down there on Main Street last Wednesday, talking about it, and the group just kept sharing ideas. And we can put lights, and we can put a hot spot, and we can do all this stuff. And you know, we talked budget, and there was an interest to make financial contributions, an interest to ask other businesses and residents to make financial contributions. So to your earlier question, Norm, Councilor Albert, is it, you know, what's the budget? The ultimate budget might not be $7,000, it might be $15,000 once we get this looking to the place that we want it to, with planters and signage and color and a hot spot and all those things that will make it a really unique spot. And I think there's a desire in the community to help add that value. And so this creates a mechanism to receive those funds, manage them, if appropriate, leverage them with other grant funds, and put them to the best use.
Can I make a motion for discussion?
A second.
My first question out of the gate is who's doing the asking? Because I don't think it's you representing the town that should be asking for funds.
Correct.
I think that puts you in an awkward position, so who takes care of that initiative?
Jeremy Barnard of Barnard Financial.
Great man.
Raised the
I
idea.
applaud his effort, absolutely.
Yep.
If you've got somebody that's willing to be able to step forward and do that on something that he feels personal, that's what we're looking for. It's something that insulates the town from having the perception as we're coming out here asking for cash. That is clearly not what we're trying to do.
Chair, I believe there's other groups also, if needed, that actually can fulfill that role. So I don't think that's a problem. It's just a matter of making sure the town's able to receive it at the other end. So
He stepped forward that night offering to chair or coordinate the effort to do that. So.
I mean, looking further down the list, he's also one of the nominations coming up. So in that regard, I was hopeful it would be under the LDC's umbrella or something of that nature, by any stretch. The next question I have is it just a continual flow of what those aesthetics were? Because I don't know, something about the reading associated with that, it's what the hell's wrong with downtown and why we just first hearing about it now.
You mean the beautification fund?
Yeah.
We'll be honest with you. The meeting, the LDC meeting was Wednesday night. We drafted this memo Thursday morning pretty quickly. So there wasn't a tremendous amount of thought put into the name, more just let's create a mechanism to capture the energy. But the way it's written, if I recall, I have to look at it, but I think it was written such that the fund would be reserved or dedicated to the areas affected by the emergency ordinance while the emergency ordinance was in place, and then funds after that emergency ordinance either was ended or lapsed could then be used in other areas of town. So really a vehicle to support the effort that we're working on right now, but if we gain momentum and the energy exists and continues forward, maybe this is the type of thing that we can use in different places.
And if I may add to that, I think any of the area and towns that we have, even though we've done a lot of work to actually put money in the town. I mean, if you drive up Main Street, there's some really neat orange flowered chairs, right, that actually draw your attention.
They just showed up.
That actually kind of like bright lights, but if you actually sit downtown and actually take the time to look around, there is a lot of room for opportunities for doing little projects. So, I mean, I'll just leave it as that. So.
And this, at some level, ties in with the public art meeting we had back in the spring before this stuff all blew up. We were thinking about where to install public art and how to get the momentum going on that. So this could definitely lend well to that and just kind of leverage and double down on the type of space that we're trying to create. And it could be pretty unique, and the different aesthetics that Ferner is referring to could really tip it over the top and make it that way. So it's to capture the energy and really focus it where
You
folks are
channeling the energy, I have no issue with associated with that, because at least you have the tie-in through the town manager to be able to have it go before us if it needs to.
Sure.
By any stretch. What I wouldn't want to do is actually slow anybody's roll, because those orange chairs just showed up. The fact is, last year we were having a discussion during the budget hearings, and I had the vision of downtown being filled with flags. Didn't slow me when the fact is it's associated with that. I wrote a darn check, and our PW director did us a solid to be able to put them up. If it's personal to somebody, find a way to make it happen, because there's a lot of beautification that can just be done around here. That's right. By any stretch. Why would you want to discourage somebody? The one thing that I think it was probably just the way that it was written. The fact is, I don't believe in a time limit. I think you want to direct it in downtown. The fact is, I think the intent associated with this is there. And the fact that I think some of that language, I might recommend striking it, because the intent is to actually establish it, to be able to give it a vehicle for it. The one criticism that I might say, as we talked about it at the library, is the fact that make sure that somebody's gift doesn't have enough strings that it's better to not accept it than it is to be able to have it done. If somebody's actually telling you can only put blue chairs in next to every orange one that Tracy's already established, that may be too restrictive associated with that to be able to be considered. But anything that's there is available for this intended purpose, and we're clear on what that vision is, I don't think you're going to get any disagreement in sitting in this room tonight. That would be the one thing that I would say, because I know that at the time it was somebody looking to do a benefactor for somebody from the Friends of the Library. Very personal, but we want to make sure that it's not too restrictive for what the intent of the gift was supposed to be.
That's a good point.
I believe that's somewhat like the trail markers and things that are put out there.
Get it over your head and suddenly I can't administer it, right? Cool. No, I get new issues associated with that. Thank you for talking it out. It was just having had my hand out for more than one cause locally, it gets hard knowing what you're actually asking for to know that it actually passes the straight face test for value in the community. That's the way I would phrase that.
We're still looking for a vote on that?
Yes, unless there's anything else, please let me stop sucking the air out of the room. Let's move the item. All in favor?
7-0, order passed.
Next item, 12.
Other business, council committee reports.
School.
They passed the budget.
Planning, sir.
Ricker Farm Solar application was approved, and that will be up on Upland Road behind the Ricker Farm, or on Ricker Farm property. And after doing a site visit up there, I realized some of the people visiting and said that it ought to have housing up there because you can see all over the town from there. It's really nice, but it will be appropriately done, not too visible. There are transformers that will be shielded by some wild-looking vegetation out there. And then the other one was a conditional use permit for the Morgan yard. What do I want to say? Lumber lot. Anyway, that was a conditional use, and it had a lot of interest from the public, but it was approved. And I think there was a time limit on some of the hours, but other than that, it was approved. That's it.
Thank you. LDC. You said she wasn't doing it, so you got tapped.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I was not actually able to attend the meeting, but actually I did get a follow-up from Mr. Fellows and Lisa and a few other people. Everybody said it was a great meeting. They said that they met down to the lot. There was good energy down to the Rumbo, and then they moved up to Main Street and continued on. So I think there's actually, if anybody is interested in what's happening downtown, feel free to reach out to Brett. And actually, there is a July meeting coming up, and I'm sure we'll be outside again since we have some good weather. So good things happening. If you're interested in seeing what's going on or want some input, I'd say step up.
Beautiful. Thank you, sir. Conservation is still yet to be able to meet. They're still trying to get back up to speed. Recreation?
Nothing new to report.
County, we have nothing at this time. Library, sir?
Library is open for business, so go in and check it out. And they have limits on, I think it's 10 people total in the building at one time, so there's a lot of busyness. You may have to wait in line outside, but I've been down there twice, and it's been going good. So I think, check it out if you haven't.
Check it out. I see what he did.
Water.
Other than a couple of last-minute repairs on mains and things like that and valves prior to paving, so they don't end up tearing up 196. That was one of the major things. They were waiting on some bids, and I think they came in last Friday. The other one, they announced that they'll be having a hearing, I believe it's August 5th, for the rate increase for the water, which they want to put in place October 1st.
Do we know who actually got the work associated with that at all? Just out of curiosity.
Who got what?
The water work bids that opened up on Friday. Haven't heard anything
No,
on
I
that.
don't. I don't.
It was just a curiosity thing, because like anything else at this point in time, I know that we're trying to do key pieces, and I'm just looking to see who's up with what to know.
Your main concern was how fast could they get it done?
That's, yeah, and usually pay a premium for that, so that's not cool too. Town manager.
So the rock crushing down at Warrumble Mill site, that's going to start next week. I don't know if you've noticed, but the MDOT project here along 196, that's started a little bit earlier. It's like a week or so ahead of schedule. So Steve had to work to get his manholes taken care of.
I think they started grinding. Has anybody seen that? Was it today? They did today, didn't they?
Oh, yes. Known really well if they were grinding.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
So we're trying to navigate all of that. We're open for business. We started last Thursday. We finally got the plexiglass in. That's been working out well. For the most part, the taxpayers are paying attention to our signs and doing the social distancing, coming in with their masks. So that's all working well. Kayla and I are going to be on a 2-hour meeting with FEMA tomorrow for reimbursements for these COVID-approved expenses, COVID-19. So it's quite a process to go through that. You've probably been through it, Alan. And they're going to require several meetings and a lot of documentation. But we're going through it so we can try to get some reimbursement.
And it's to our advantage to play along because
Yep.
90% is reimbursable as long as it meets the criteria of why you did it. Not 75 from the Fed, 15 from the state. So this town potentially, if everything goes well, would be just the 10%. And I say just that, but realize there's a lot of soft costs that will never be recovered, and lost productivity associated with this over the last 10 weeks is hard to even quantify, but there are resources there for specific purposes, like the police grant that Chief Hagan's 7,400 or 4,700, I forget which it was, for the kits that are in the cruises. That didn't just fall out of the sky. That's actually something that's benefiting our local municipality. CARES Act from the school. There's key things here to be able to move us forward.
Yeah, and the FMLA leave under the CARES Act that they put into place, all the employees that took advantage of that, we had a few that did. We've been keeping track of the wages. I can send that, and I did that today, sent that off to our insurance company, and they're going to forward it to Mimic, and we won't have to pay premiums on those dollars. So we'll have a little savings on the workers' comp as well, which I didn't know we could do that, and I just found out today, so I took care of that. And there may be some other things that come up that we're not aware of, but we'll get through it. The main thing is to take advantage of as much as we can. So I don't know how much, if the next act that comes through package, if we're going to get any reimbursement. So that's all I have.
Department head reports, I guess, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anybody have any questions on any of the content? Twyla, you had another plug?
I have a notice that I'd like to just read. Nomination papers for elected officials will be available Wednesday, August the 5th at 8:30 a.m. for the November 3rd, 2020 annual election. There's one opening for council, one for school committee, and one for water commission. Papers would need to be filed by Friday, September the 4th at 4:30 p.m. You would need not less than 50, no more than 75 signatures from registered voters, and the seats that are up would be Fern La Rochelle on the council, Ross Cunningham on the school committee, and Roger Bickford from the water department.
Thank you. Puts us to appointments?
Yes, it does. Order 2020-120, the Lisbon Development Committee, an appointment to 2023. That would be Jeremy Bernard.
I make the motion that we set.
I'll second.
Anybody that doesn't know the man, in effect, is very well spoken, very interested in moving anything here forward in Lisbon. He's just got one of those contagious energies.
He's a business owner too.
Yeah.
Point that out.
Yeah. By all means. Hearing no other discussion, all in favor?
Order passed 7-0. Next appointment is the Lisbon Development Committee. Angie Demores to 2021 reappointment.
I make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Yeah. We gave her an award last
She's
time.
good.
so
She's
nobody
good
else.
people.
We gave her
Pretty
an
hard not to
award.
deny that one, right?
Before she changes her mind, certify that.
Right.
Next.
Next is the annual renewal board and committee appointments on the assessment review board. Lisa Ward's term is up for renewal. Appeals board, Jesse Zach. Library governing board, Hillary Cole. Conservation commission, Alan Siemens. Planning board, William Cole. Ethics panel, David Bowie, and recreation committee, Angie Demores and Zach Schmull.
Do we know any of these parties that aren't interested in renewing?
These all sent their letters asking to be reappointed.
Right on.
Yeah, motion then.
I need a second for that.
Second.
All in favor? Thank
Motion
you.
passed,
Glad that
7-0.
they're still interested. Good.
Next.
We do have some vacancies we'll advertise. Order 2021-23 is the chairman's annual appointment of the Ethics Panel Chairman. And David Bowie said he was willing to continue. If you
I'll definitely make that motion.
Yeah, I'll second on that.
It's just his appointment only, so if Alan would need to say,
Oh, I'm good.
announce
I'm
his
good.
appointment.
I'm good.
All right, so
Absolutely. That's
it.
one of the little nuances of our charter that I didn't know was there. By all
all right,
means.
we'll make that happen.
Yep.
Just out of curiosity, who else is sitting on the ethics board right now?
Not sure right now. I don't have that.
I think Dave's, that's fine. I think, the only reason I asked is I think it's Dave.
You have a vacancy or
Committee of
two
one.
we need to
I think
consider.
we need, well, the other reason I bring it up is I think that we're in a spot where people want to get involved. If we know of anybody who we think would be a good fit for the ethics board, I'm sure Dave's pretty lonely right now, so I want to give him some company.
When you put together the list of vacancies of what we need, could you?
Yes, we're going to post it on the website as well.
Yep.
And then one thing to remember about the ethics panel is that you cannot serve on a planning or appeals
Right.
board or something
Well,
other
right.
than that. It's specific.
It's one of those committees that we typically poach from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So order 2021-24 is the LDC resignation of Gerald Haggerty.
I'll make that motion for discussion.
Second.
He's not willing to accept it. I love
No.
that.
No, my only discussion is I just want to thank Cheryl for doing what she does. I mean, Cheryl has definitely been very busy in the last few years, and with her business going as crazy as it is, I do appreciate everything she does. And Cheryl even left me a message that day saying that she's going to resign doesn't mean she still doesn't want to be involved, just not wearing a hat. That's all. So, again, I want to thank Cheryl for everything she does, and I'm sure she'll still be very involved. But anytime we have someone leave, we want to make sure we welcome them back if they ever get interested. So places, we'll have always something open for Cheryl if she wants to come in and do some time.
We need all in favor of that one.
7-0, order passed. Councilor Communications.
Anybody got anything that hasn't already been said?
I just do want to actually bring up, I should have brought it up earlier, Alan's point about the flags. That definitely was noticed, and again, I think it's appreciated again this year that went back up, and it was a small token this year, especially with all the stuff going on for people driving through and seeing, and hopefully we can work on next year and maybe make that a little bit bigger project, I think.
Yeah,
so.
we had the greatest of intent associated with that before things started getting real, and the fact is, it is definitely something to be able to move forward. And if it's not with the Legion, I have another avenue there with the local scout troop, because it has traction. There are things in our corridors that we can definitely do, and point at anything that we were having is, I don't want to slow anybody's roll.
No, I think we ought to, if with the flags being what they are, I think hopefully maybe we can work together and maybe before the end of the year come up with a plan so it's not tagging off in spring. So.
Right. No, thank you, and I appreciated you actually noticing the orange chairs, because Tracy just did it. The fact is, sometimes it's better to beg forgiveness than it is to ask permission, but there is a certain part of it is our downtown too, so one person's vision should at least be run through Brett to be able to control that energy. Yeah. Anybody else?
I just want to say, Mr. Chair, I'm very happy to have finally realized the reasoning and the background behind your speaking in riddles. And I knew Lois, so I get it.
Yeah, it's usually when the wires are crossing in my head, it's because you can't handle what I'm truly thinking. Yeah. I thank you, Don. Next item.
Got all that written down.
Oh, that's great.
That's going to look great.
That is not going to make the final cut.
Audience participation for new items.
We got to check the email.
Yeah.
Check the email.
I got nobody since the first two, so we got everybody tonight, so we're moving on.
Executive session none. Order 2021-25 to adjourn.
I make that motion.
I need a second.
I'll second.
We out.
Order passed, 7-0.
Thank you all.
Okay,
Before
now,
9
who was
o'clock,
ahead?
you go, sir.
Look at that.
Your agreement.
First time we've done it before 9 o'clock.
I know, it's like forever.
That's the beauty of coming to the end of the budget season.
No, I wasn't feeling that we were actually gonna make it, tell you the truth.
Well,
So can I poll you really quick?
No, that's illegal.
yeah, they do that in Singapore, but not here.
No, not yet.